If you're going to live fully, if you're going to step into your own power, if you're going to show up as you, someone somewhere is going to hate it. So let's talk about it. When you start embracing who you are, really embracing it, you disrupt the status quo. People are used to you being predictable, agreeable, digestible. The moment you stop filtering yourself for their comfort, they feel unsettled. Not because you've done something wrong, but because they don't know what to do with a person who refuses to shrink. I remember a woman, let's call her Sarah, who spent most of her life playing the role people expected of her. She was the nice one, the one who never made waves, the one who stayed quiet even when she had something important to say. She had this ability to read a room and adjust herself accordingly, like a social chameleon. But one day something shifted. She got tired of biting her tongue, tired of making herself smaller, tired of saying yes when everything in her wanted to say no. So she stopped. She started speaking up in meetings. She started setting boundaries. She stopped apologizing for things that didn't need an apology. And you know what happened? Some people didn't like it. Friends who were used to her always saying, whatever works for you, suddenly found her difficult. Colleagues who were used to her being the peacemaker started calling her too much. And that hurt, because for a long time she believed that if she was just kind enough, just accommodating enough, just small enough, people would like her. And they did, until she stopped making herself convenient. That's the tricky part about stepping into who you are. People like the version of you that serves them best. The moment you step outside of that, the moment you stop prioritizing their comfort over your own authenticity, some of them will struggle with it. Not because they're bad people, but because they built an expectation around who you were supposed to be. And expectations are tricky things. Here's where the research comes in. Human beings crave certainty. We like predictability. The brain is wired to create patterns, to categorize people and situations into something manageable. So when someone suddenly changes the way they show up, especially if that change means they're no longer as pliable or easy to control, it disrupts the narrative we've built about them. And disruption, that makes people uncomfortable. But here's what I need you to hear. Their discomfort is not your problem to solve. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to stop being the version of yourself that made everyone else's life easier while making your own life harder. A friend of mine, a therapist, once told me, when people are used to you having no boundaries, the moment you set one, they experience it as betrayal. And that's real. If people are used to you saying yes to everything, the first time you say no, they don't think, oh, good for them, they're practicing self-respect. No, they think, wait, what? This isn't how it works. And sometimes that turns into resentment. Here's the truth. Their resentment is their responsibility. You can't keep trading your peace for their approval. You can't keep performing a version of yourself just to make sure no one else has to feel uncomfortable. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And if you keep doing it long enough, you start to forget who you really are underneath all those layers of performance. So, yeah, some people won't like it when you stop shrinking. Some people will try to pull you back into the shape that made sense to them. And I won't lie to you, that part can be painful. It's hard to watch relationships shift. It's hard to sit in the discomfort of being misunderstood. But you know what's even harder? Waking up one day and realizing you spent your whole life being a version of yourself that never felt like you. So let them be uncomfortable. Let them feel what they feel. You don't have to carry it for them. Being disliked isn't the worst thing in the world. You know what is? Living in a way that keeps everyone else comfortable while betraying yourself. We think rejection is the enemy, but the real enemy is self-abandonment. If the price of being truly yourself is losing a few people who were never meant for you, well, that's a trade worth making. I once had a conversation with a woman who told me she felt like she was suffocating in her own life. She had a good job, a solid friend group, a family that loved her. On paper, everything looked great. But when she was honest with herself, she admitted she felt like a stranger in her own story. She had spent years making choices that weren't really hers. She majored in what her parents wanted her to major in. She took a job she didn't love because it was responsible. She said yes to plans she didn't want to go to, agreed with opinions she didn't share, and kept her true thoughts locked away because deep down she was terrified that if she showed up as her real self, people would leave. So she played it safe. She made herself likable. And in doing so, she lost herself. Sound familiar? Most of us have been there in some way. Maybe not on that scale, but in little ways. The offhanded laugh at a joke that didn't sit right. The silence when we should have spoken up. The habit of saying, oh, I don't care, whatever you want, when we really do care. And we tell ourselves it's just being polite, just keeping the peace, just making things easier. But easier for who? Here's something that's hard to admit. When we spend our lives managing how other people feel about us, we are negotiating our worth on their terms. We are letting their approval decide who we get to be. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my life to be a series of performances, carefully curated to avoid upsetting anyone, because, let's be clear, people will be upset. Not everyone is going to cheer when you start setting boundaries. Not everyone will be thrilled when you stop saying yes to things that drain you. Some will call you selfish. Some will say, you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You have stopped betraying yourself. And that is not a bad thing. Research shows that our brains are wired for connection. We are literally built to seek belonging. But belonging is not the same as fitting in. Fitting in is about molding yourself into whatever shape will get you accepted. Belonging is about showing up as yourself, fully and unapologetically, and trusting that the right people will see you, hear you, and accept you. Not because you made yourself small enough to fit their world, but because you had the courage to take up space in your own. And yes, that means some people will walk away. Some people will misunderstand you. Some will whisper about you when you leave the room. That's uncomfortable. I won't sugarcoat that. But what's even more uncomfortable is looking back on your life and realizing you spent all of it auditioning for a role you never wanted. So if the cost of being real is that some people won't like it, let them go. Because at the end of the day, losing yourself just to be liked isn't a bargain. It's a trap. Some people need a villain, and if you're the one who challenges their expectations, their beliefs, or their sense of control, congratulations, you've been cast in that role. But here's the catch. Their story about you is their story. It's not your truth to carry. I had a friend who went through a major shift in her life. For years, she was the reliable one, the fixer, the person everyone turned to when things got hard, and she loved helping. Until she realized that her kindness had turned into an expectation, a silent contract she never agreed to. She was always the one who dropped everything, always the one who made the sacrifices. And slowly it started to take its toll. So she made a decision. She stopped over-explaining. She stopped showing up for people who only called when they needed something. She started saying no. And almost instantly, she became the problem. People who had once praised her for being so selfless suddenly found her selfish. Friends who had relied on her unquestioning loyalty now called her distant, difficult, ungrateful. She was shocked. Had I really changed that much? She wondered. Or had I just stopped playing a role they needed me to play? Here's the hard truth. When people benefit from you staying small, they will resent you when you stop. Not because you've done something wrong, but because they've built a version of you in their minds and they don't want to let it go. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when reality doesn't match our expectations. And instead of adjusting their perspective, some people will rewrite the story to make themselves more comfortable. They'll label you as difficult instead of admitting they only liked you when you were easy. They'll call you selfish instead of acknowledging that they took too much. They'll say you change, but what they really mean is, you stop making my life easier at the expense of your own. And here's where it gets tricky. Because when people tell stories about us, we want to correct them. We want to explain ourselves. We want to call a press conference and say, wait, that's not who I am. But here's the thing. You can't control someone else's narrative. You can't make people see you accurately if they are committed to misunderstanding you. You can't force someone to acknowledge your growth if they only feel safe when you stay the same. So what do? You let them be wrong about you. You let them sit with their discomfort. You let them create whatever story helps them sleep at night. And then you move on. Because the only thing worse than being misjudged is spending your life proving yourself to people who were never going to see you clearly in the first place. So let them talk. Let them roll their eyes. Let them make you the villain in a story you never asked to be a part of. And then let them go. When you let go of the fear of being disliked, you open up space for something better. Authentic connections. The people who stick around, the ones who lean in instead of turning away, those are your people. And you'll never find them if you're too busy trying to win over the ones who were never meant to stay. I once met a woman who had spent years being the person everyone expected her to be. She laughed at the right jokes, agreed with the right opinions, played the part so well that even she started to believe it. And for a long time, it worked. She had friends, she had approval, she had that warm, reassuring feeling that she was liked. Until one day, she started asking herself a terrifying question. If I stopped performing, if I stopped shape-shifting, if I showed up as exactly who I am, would they still want me here? That question sat in the pit of her stomach like a stone, because deep down, she knew the answer. So she made a choice. She started letting her real thoughts out. She stopped saying yes when she meant no. She stopped agreeing just to keep the peace. She stopped making herself small just to fit into spaces that were never built for her in the first place. And just as she feared, some people didn't like it. Some distanced themselves. Some whispered, "She's different now." And she was. Because here's the thing. When you start being honest about who you are, your relationships will shift. Some will fade. Some will fall apart. And that's not a sign that you've done something wrong. That's a sign that you've stopped auditioning for acceptance. But something else happens too. The people who do stick around, the ones who don't flinch when you stop playing the part, the ones who say, "Finally, I see you," instead of "I miss the old you," those people are gold. Those are the ones who see your messy, complicated, unpolished self and don't run away. They don't need you to fit a mold because they weren't here for the mold in the first place. They were here for you. And I won't lie to you. Getting to those people requires walking through the discomfort of being misunderstood. It means letting go of some relationships you once clung to. It means making peace with the fact that not everyone is going to come with you. But the cost of avoiding that discomfort? A life spent surrounded by people who don't really know you. So yes, some people will leave. Some people won't get it. Some people will talk about you in rooms you're not in. But the ones who stay, they'll be the ones who never needed you to be anything other than who you are. And those people, they are worth everything you had to let go of to find them. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about showing up even when you know some people won't approve. It's about choosing integrity over popularity. It's about deciding that your voice, your values, and your vision are worth more than universal acceptance. I once met a man who spent years making himself agreeable. He had mastered the art of saying what people wanted to hear. He was likable, charming, easy to be around, and for a long time, he thought that was enough, until the day he had to make a choice that wasn't easy. His company was making decisions that didn't sit right with him. He knew speaking up might cost him relationships, maybe even his job. He wrestled with it, stayed up at night, playing out the different scenarios, wondering if it was worth it. And then one morning, as he was getting ready, his young daughter asked him, "Daddy, what do you do at work?" And he froze because he wanted to tell her that he stood for something, that he made choices based on what was right, not just what was safe, that he wasn't the kind of person who stayed silent just to avoid conflict. But in that moment, he realized he wasn't sure if he could say that. So he spoke up, and sure enough, it wasn't easy. He lost people he thought would always have his back. He was called difficult and dramatic. Some of the same people who once praised his character suddenly found him too much. But here's what else happened. He could finally look himself in the mirror and know without a doubt that he was living in alignment with his values. He could answer his daughter's question with honesty. And that, he told me, was worth more than every friendship, every job, every ounce of approval he had lost. Because at the end of the day, that's what courage is. It's not loud. It's not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's simply standing in the truth of who you are, even when it shakes, even when it costs you. And I won't lie to you, sometimes it will cost you. Sometimes doing what's right for you will be inconvenient for others. Sometimes people will be uncomfortable with your boundaries, your voice, your refusal to shrink. But their discomfort is not an invitation for you to change. It's a sign that you are stepping into yourself. And the beautiful thing, when you do that, you give other people permission to do the same. Because courage is contagious. When you choose to show up fully, you create space for others to do it too. You remind people that they don't have to trade their truth for approval, that they don't have to live their lives in fear of being misunderstood. So let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them walk away, because the cost of their approval is you. And that's a price you should never have to pay. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself one question: whose life am I living? Mine or theirs? Because if you spend your days chasing approval, making yourself small, bending and twisting to keep everyone comfortable, you'll wake up one day and realize you built a life that doesn't even feel like yours. And that's too high a price to pay. So let them hate you. Let them roll their eyes. Let them tell whatever story makes them feel better. Because while they're busy talking about you, you'll be busy becoming you. The people who truly matter, the ones who see you, value you, love you, they won't need you to be anything other than exactly who you are. And the ones who do, they were never meant to stay.